Hello, welcome everyone to today's session on ETQ Reliance Overview and question and answer. So as always, all registrants will receive a link to the recording. We are recording this session, and be sure to use that GoToWebinar panel to ask any questions or share your thoughts during the presentation. And hopefully we will have time at the end to answer those questions you've got. I'm Angela Anderson, Product Marketing Manager with ETQ, and I'm joined today by my esteemed colleague, Tom Barlow, one of ETQ's in-house quality experts and strategic solution engineers. Tom, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you.
Great to be here with you, Tom, and with all of you out there in the audience. So to kick things off, just wanted to talk a little about, in today's environment, we all know that quality management never gets simpler. It's always more complex, and there are so many challenges to address. Inconsistent and manual processes that impact your productivity, that's all wasted capacity, human and otherwise, that could be deployed elsewhere. Siloed systems forcing duplication of work, wasting hours on something that could be automated, but and not to mention limiting your ability to scale your quality program across your organization. Oh, I just kind of got ahead of myself there. Apologies. As well as unresolved issues, kind of delaying your product to market, and weak supplier relationships, adding more unknown risk. If you've got suppliers sending you non-conforming material and you don't have a way to effectively address those issues in a consistent and timely way, then the cost of dealing with those issues can really grow exponentially. And these issues, they do span a range of impacts to the business, and they illustrate how quality management can touch the entire product lifecycle. And actively managing quality across that entire product lifecycle really benefits your organization in several ways, including reducing your cost of poor quality to minimize business disruption, risk to the brand, negative impact on revenue, improving supplier quality to reduce cost and risk and enhance customer loyalty through better product quality. Your organization can also benefit from this by efficiently meeting changing regulatory, compliance, customer, and market requirements at scale. Things are always changing out there in the regulatory environment, so keeping up with that is so critical. Accelerating your time to market by optimizing that life cycle, and improving, probably, or perhaps most importantly, is improving your decision velocity across all of these facets by leveraging insights from a centralized source of truth for your quality data. So every step of the way, as we see here, there is opportunity to apply a quality mindset, from designing quality into the product at the outset to ensuring receipt of high quality goods from the suppliers and holding them accountable, managing quality during the manufacturing and assembly process, ensuring delivery of high quality goods to distribution and customers, and then selling the product at its best when all of those things before that come together. And then as well, gathering that feedback on quality and performance. So critical, especially in regulated industries, but also that customer feedback is a really key input for continuous improvement in any industry. And a closed loop quality system has feedback loops built in across this entire cycle. The added challenge is, the added challenge here, and this is what a digital enterprise QMS can allow you to do, is to centralize, harmonize, and scale the system across all of your sites around the world. And then you've got visibility into the trends and systemic issues that you can address globally. And we believe you can mitigate all kinds of risks through the practice of this idea of closed loop quality management, going beyond compliance to a proactive continuous improvement, giving your organization real competitive advantage. Okay, so kind of wrapping up here the introduction. So really the only way, looking at that, all those kind of complex moving parts across the product lifecycle, the only way to really manage that complexity And to harmonize those global processes and do the automation for closed loop workflows is to have the right tools and technology. And in other words, a purpose-built digital QMS solution. So necessary workflow and automations and traceability are just not possible with paper or manual processes, or even siloed point solutions, or just file sharing systems. So at ETQ, we've mapped out a quality journey maturity model to help guide our customers. So in the Ignite phase, you're building that strong foundation of core QMS elements. The taking on the best, the best practice is to adopt ETQ's, we call it battle-tested, out-of-the-box processes to speed up your onboarding and gain early wins. And we have a lot of those kind of core processes kind of structured and ready to go out of the box and ready to be configured to your particular needs. In the accelerate phase, you're going to take a phased approach to connect more workflows across more teams and systems. You're going to think about introducing system integrations that link data and connect and automate those workflows, and eliminate even more of that administrative burden that you may be seeing with paper or manual or siloed systems. And then stepping into the expand phase, you'll look at widening the quality net, is what I like to say, to give additional stakeholders, perhaps like suppliers or customers, an active role in your quality processes, and moving those quality inputs upstream into, like we looked at before, the new product development efforts. So imagine a world where you can actually hold your suppliers accountable, because all the supporting documentation for a corrective action, for example, are right there in one place, and they can securely access that data and take action. And then the business rules you configure automatically communicate supplier status to your ERP and your procurement teams. That's a really powerful use case for taking this connected quality approach and moving through the maturity model here. So in the final phase, in the transform phase, the seeds of that quality culture that you plant all along the way through the previous phases will have grown into, hopefully, a new strategic approach to effectively manage all those challenges that we looked at earlier. And the lines between the phases are somewhat fluid based on individual needs, but looking at the journey holistically, you can really see how your QMS can become a hub for connecting systems all across your organization and set you up for meaningful competitive advantage. And as we all know, because the business landscape is always shifting and changing, the cycle of this quality journey never ends. And that's the power of a purpose-built EQMS, is it's able to go along with you on that journey to expand and scale to your needs. So for over 30 years, ETQ has empowered quality champions to use quality management as a catalyst for business success. We offer flexible, scalable, easy to use EQMS solution that's purpose-built to connect quality processes to all areas of your organization. We have industry knowledge and expertise across many industries, which is reflected in our diverse customer base of over 600 customers, representing discrete and process manufacturing, food and bev, consumer goods, pharma, med device, electronics, the list goes on. We aim to be a trusted advisor to you and help you guide you along your quality journey, from all the way from making your business case to project planning to onboarding and beyond. And we are part of Hexagon, and they're a global leader in sensor software and autonomous manufacturing solutions. So as mentioned, with ETQ, you're in good company. We serve hundreds of customers of all shapes and sizes across many industries. And this slide kind of gives you a sense of our range and kind of the approach we take to our presenting our QMS solution, is that because of our broad industry experience, we can bring all of those best practices together and cross-pollinate to bring up the level of quality management across all types of industries. Okay, with that, that concludes the intro. And at this point, I'm going to hand it off to Tom, and he's going to take you through a platform overview and some live demonstration, and also touching upon some of the recent enhancements that we have introduced to the platform. So are you ready, Tom? I'm gonna
Let's
switch
see if,
over to you. Yep.
okay.
Did you get the notice for the switch?
Can you see my screen now?
I can, thank you.
All right, so what we thought we would do, thank you for that great introduction, Angela. Give you a little bit of a platform overview of ETQ Reliance, just to sort of level set everyone on what ETQ Reliance actually is. We have a couple of platform enhancements that we've recently made, both a combination of platform enhancements as well as new applications that we'd like to discuss. And we'll jump into a bit of a live demonstration as well, and then we'll open it up for Q&A at the end. So that's what we thought we would do. And of course, at the end, Angela will be looking at questions, and we'll be discussing different things that might be going on with the questions that are going or coming from you. So ETQ Reliance is a very unique tool because it's really a workflow-based business process automation platform that has 42 pre-configured applications that we've pre-built using our own designer tool, and then we package and allow you to start using as well. Because we use our own designer tool to actually build our own applications, that means that you as the non-technical administrator have the ability to configure the system without programming using that same drag and drop tool. So the Agile platform part comes from the ability to not just configure the apps that we predefined based on our 30 years of best practices experience, that's based on your own requirements, but also if your needs should change moving forward, you can just as easily configure it without programming using that designer tool, adding new fields, modifying workflows, building in business rules. In addition to that, you can even build your own new applications on the platform that were not part of the original 42 applications. So what we've heard ETQ Reliance referred to is as the hub, so your kind of your process hub, your QMS hub, which is going to automate different processes, as well as the ability to be the backbone. So it's a global system that can be implemented across your organization to automate business processes. And it's very easy to access because it's available in the cloud. So it's an Amazon Web Services cloud-based tool. So that's really the high level of what ETQ Reliance actually is. It's really a workflow-based business process automation platform first. And then on top of that, we have different applications that we pre-configure and we package it so that it follows that whole journey that Angela was just discussing a few minutes ago. So the stuff in this reddish, purplish color is the core system, which is the platform, which is all the functionality that the system needs to work. And then we have these applications on top of it. So that would be essentially to align with the Ignite phase of your journey. These are the core processes that every organization would need. And then there are optional application sets on the right side that include about 4 applications each. So these are sets of apps that are packaged as such, which you can then choose to add in the future or initially, depending on your initial requirements for implementation of processes. So that's the way it's packaged. And then the system itself, before I jump into any more discussion of processes, I'd like to talk about these 6 capable or powerful genetics, which make our system extremely powerful and scalable across your organization. The first one we've already talked about, and one of the things about these different genetics is that they're applicable to all of the apps on the platform, whether they're configured by us or whether you configure it as part of the ongoing journey that you might follow to implement additional business processes. So all of the apps will have an incredible level of configurability, which I've already addressed actually. The second thing is what we call connectivity. This is really the relationship between processes. If you think about a quality management system or any compliance management system, you don't just have a bunch of separate applications that work in a vacuum. There are some other systems out there that are in our space that work that way. They do have other apps too, but they may not connect as well as ours do. So connectivity is the ability to launch one process from another, the ability to link them together automatically so that there's full traceability. An example of that might be looking at the core applications. We have an application called Document Control, which is a workflow-based application for the creation, review, approval, distribution, and revision of documents. So any user can access the system and have access to the most recently approved versions of documents very quickly and easily. That ties very closely into our training management application, which allows you to track training and also allow self-training. So when a document gets created and or revised, you can identify if training is required, and if so, who has to be trained on it. Is it a corporate policy and procedure that everyone needs to be trained on? Is it based on department? Is it based on specific jobs or roles? And the system can automate the assignment and tracking of the completion of that training, whether it's just self-acknowledgement, where they just click and acknowledge they're aware of it, or do they have to take a multiple choice test? So that's an example of connectivity. Also, in addition to the fact that we can connect between our own applications, you inevitably will have other systems in place, ERP, MES, PLM, all kinds of acronyms that I probably can't think of for other tools that contain data and information that's being managed by others, HR systems or learning management systems, for example. So we have a strategy where we have a wide open integration methodology, basically using RESTful web services to be able to integrate with virtually any other system. We're not prescriptive in saying we integrate with these 3 or these 5 systems. We leave it open with a set of APIs available for you to modify, to point to information, either synchronizing with it or triggering records from our system into others, or vice versa, triggering records in our system from other systems. So there are a lot of options available when it comes to integration. And keep in mind, these things I'm discussing apply to every application on the platform, whether it exists now or even is something that you might configure in the future using our drag and drop designer. The other thing is called contextual awareness. This is really important as you grow in size within an organization, because oftentimes when you have a global organization, there could be regional differences or business unit differences or requirements that are different from one group to another. And it's difficult to manage that with a system that requires that you standardize everything across the globe. Oftentimes you can't get everyone to agree, whether it's for a person reason, maybe politically people can't agree, which if you think about implementing a global system, you'll always have an element of that involved. But there also could be real process reasons why things may not be the same, whether it's very minor differences or very significant differences. So with contextual awareness, you can define your own organizational structure in a hierarchy, and then our system allows you to identify every record, which actually happens automatically, by location, whether it's a certain location or level of the hierarchy. That same location hierarchy exists on the user's profile, so that when someone logs in from a certain place in the organization, the system can dynamically filter and allow them to only see the information that pertains to them. So what it does is it, from a security reason, prevents them from seeing things that they're not supposed to see. And it also makes it simpler for them to use the system because they're only ever seeing things that are applicable to them. We have some customers that literally have dozens of locations and thousands, even tens of thousands of end users. And this allows those users to only see the portion of the system that's applicable to them in any application. It doesn't matter if they're looking at documents or corrective actions or quality events or whatever it might be. It allows you to deliver just the part of the piece of the pie or that part of the information that they need to see, which is nice because it extends itself to the next capability, which we call external collaboration. Because our system is hosted in the cloud, you don't have any firewall concerns, so you don't have to worry about whether you want to allow external users like suppliers or contractors to be able to access the system. So you simply extend the hierarchy to include external users like suppliers or contractors or customers or anyone else, and therefore when they log in, the system knows that they're from a certain supplier, and any information that they're only allowed to see would be only visible to them. Supplier corrective actions, PPAPs, documents that they have to participate in the review and approval of, or training where you want to acknowledge that they're aware of a document, or change requests in our change management application. Once the supplier is set up as a user in the system, it doesn't matter which processes you allow them access to. You can allow them access to any business process on the platform. So the whole idea is to have a backbone or hub, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, to allow you to have business process automation. And the amount of applications that you choose to implement is almost academic, because it's just a matter of taking your processes and implementing them within our platform. In addition to that, anywhere access means that you don't have to be tied to your laptop or your desktop to access the system. We support browsers on your tablet, such as Firefox and Chrome, so that if you're mobile and you want to conduct an audit, You can take your tablet with you and you can conduct the audit, or if you want to launch a product nonconformance or do a calibration of a device or something like that, you could do it right in our mobile browser so that you can carry it with you, and you have the additional advantage of being able to take pictures and have them get attached and whatnot. Or we also have a separate mobility app that's available for Apple or Android devices that you can download and then use on your phone or your tablet, which means that you can then do audits on your mobile phone. You can conduct or create new records of any type that you want to allow on the mobile device. So the idea is to have access anywhere. So the reason we spend a few minutes describing these things is because it's really core to our system. It's key. It's really a major set of differentiating points as well. So it allows you to have a business process automation platform that allows you to implement globally, but still have regional differences, local differences, whatever it might be, to allow you to have all your processes met. So that's the genetics. And what we're going to do, we expanded a little bit more here on the platform enhancements. So what we're going to be focusing on, at least for the plan portion of our discussion, is the new quality events app, the lab investigation app, the centralized reporting and alerts, where we've reintroduced the charts tool into our system. And then we also have a new capability at the platform level called Google Docs integration. So we also wanted to note that our system update cadence is 3 times per year, which is planned. So that's going to happen by itself. We would, of course, send you details. Your administrators would have release notes available with all the details of any changes. We typically update the development instance first, which is your sort of your dev instance where you're doing your configurations. And then there's about I think 6-week period, Angela, after which we would update your production instance with the updates. So that gives you ample time to look at the new changes, maybe make any configuration changes you may want to, which you might have new features that you can then incorporate, and then that would be promoted. So that's the idea here. So I'm going to talk about the overall process first. So what we thought we might do is give you sort of an overall, we talked about connectivity. And what I like about this slide is it's one of several different scenarios or stories that we can support within our system, which talks about closed loop processes with connectivity. So when you think about an issue could be one of multiple sources or types. An issue could be a customer complaint, it could be a product nonconformance, it could be an audit finding. If you're looking at health and safety, it could be an accident or incident that occurs, which we can also support within our system. So we have the ability to, and this diagram is going to sort of grow as I go through the story. It allows us to really talk about the different sources of issues, the common method of investigating it, and then of course taking corrective action in a common manner. But it also allows us to incorporate some of the other things we just discussed. So for example, if you have a system like Salesforce or any other CRM tool, Microsoft Dynamics, or anything that you might be using to capture issues from customers, a real-time integration would allow you to trigger a new record in our system for handling that complaint, whether it's a complaint or customer feedback record. This is an app in our system which has its own workflow. The inheritance or the integration would populate the record, and then the workflow rules would know who to assign it to based on the location, the type, the product, or whatever it might be. So it would automate the creation of a new record. In addition, we could launch a new record such as a nonconformance report or a lab investigation right from that complaint as well, depending on what the issue was. Another source of an issue could be identifying the nonconformance in the process. So you might be doing an inspection, or you might be doing a receipt of something, or whatever it might be, and you identify some sort of an issue, a nonconformance report, and then, or you could be using a third-party tool like a LIMS system or ERP system or MES system. We sort of love our acronyms here, don't we? So any of those tools could still be used to do your process, just like you're using the CRM tool to capture complaints. You could use your other tool to actually do the inspection, and then a real-time integration could trigger a nonconformance report or a lab investigation from that, depending on which industry you're working in. And then from there, you could click another button and launch a supplier corrective action. So this is all, these arrows are really representing the connectivity that I described. When you launch one record from another in our system, it inherits details from the source record, so you're not having to retype anything. And it also provides hyperlinks back and forth between those related records for full traceability. So the idea is that it automates your process, and then using external collaboration, you can send your supplier corrective action using standard workflow functionality right to your supplier. So the supplier user would be sitting at their desk, their inbox would income an email that says you have a supplier corrective action assigned to you. It could even have a description of the problem with a hyperlink back to the record. They could click on the link, they would have to log in, but then it would bring them right to the record that they were just assigned to. The record also has a due date for that step, so our systems escalation tool would track the upcoming due date as it approaches to start sending reminders to, in this case, the supplier. So imagine a situation where you don't even have to follow up with your own suppliers because the system is going to do it for you automatically using standard workflow. So far we've described two different sources of issues. One could be from customers, one could be from non-conformances that you identify, and then the other one could be from audits. So one of the core applications that you may have seen a few minutes ago is audits management. You can schedule your audits, you can plan your audits, you can import all your existing audit types right into our system. You can conduct audits, and invariably, when there's an issue from an audit, you can launch what's called a quality event. So this now notice is coming from all the different sources we just described. So this is one of the new applications that we wanted to discuss today. And the reason we're giving you this story or telling you this story is to provide a background behind really how it works and how important it is into the overall big picture. Because we would argue that not all issues are created equal, right? Which means that you shouldn't necessarily do the same kind of response or provide the same kind of response to every single issue. Let's say it's an issue that's not that important to you as an organization or low risk. Is it worthy of a full corrective action? We would argue that it's not. So this quality events application allows you to take any source, and from that source, you can easily launch a quality event record, which inherits the details from the source. It allows you to have a common mechanism to do an investigation of the issue, do a risk assessment, perhaps then determine, we call it track and trend, which means if we track and trend it, that means it's not worthy of a corrective action, but yet we've still captured all of our issues in one common place. So therefore, you can start to do trend analysis of the issues by source. Keep in mind, we already talked about the contextual awareness and the ability to harmonize across your enterprise. So that means when people are creating issues and recording problems, they're consistently using the same fields with the same keywords to capture that what means the same thing. So you're breaking down silos and barriers that often exist within organizations because they don't have a mechanism to do things in a harmonized way. They often do them separately with their own separate systems. So now you have global reporting, you have the ability to do global trend analysis, and in this case, you have the ability to say, we don't need to do a corrective action, but now we can also do that reporting and analytics on that. So you see all the white space over here. What this scenario means is you saved your organization all the time and resources it would take to do a full corrective action and all the action items and everything else and the follow-up that has to take place, which could take months, if not longer. And of course, as you probably know, when you get audited, whether it's internal or external audits, the first place that people look is the corrective action system, which is the heart of the QMS. So what this does is it gives you an objective way to capture the issue and evaluate the issue, but then still not necessarily do a corrective action. The other scenario could be is that the quality event could be recorded as a new record without a source, mainly because it doesn't fit into one of the previously mentioned categories. It's not a product nonconformance, it's not a customer complaint, it's not an audit finding, but it still is something that needs to be captured as a potential issue and it needs to be evaluated. So someone could even have this on their mobile app, for example, and they could see something and they could just snap a picture, create a new record, and then hit send, and then it would just send that record using workflow to the appropriate people to evaluate the issue. Even if that issue goes no further, you still have that rich information of what kind of issues are we having, and we can do trend analysis across the globe. If the issue is worthy of a full corrective action, you can click a button and launch a corrective action, which has its own robust process for action planning and approval, and then you can delegate actions to different people and assign them. And then with full traceability, and that's why we call it a closed loop process, because I mentioned earlier that we have two core apps called Doc Control and Training, where your documents exist and the training is captured. So if there's a corrective action that came from an issue, that means that we have to review and revise one or more documents and or provide training. We can not only have actions that say we have to do those things, but we actually have the objective evidence in the form of links from the action that says we have to review and revise documents to the actual documents that were reviewed and revised. That's something that is often missing in a QMS. Often people have SharePoint or corporate S drives, or worse, someone's local hard drive that stores objective evidence. We can track that objective evidence with the system by linking to other records or actually attaching files right into the record itself. So that's the introduction. That's the story we wanted to mention. So let me just introduce the 3 new apps, and I know that took a few minutes, and I know Angela's getting ready to yell at me here, I think. Are we good, Angela, on time?
We're great on time. And thank you for kind of setting the stage by going through that conceptual overview. Very
Cool.
powerful
Yeah.
stories there.
Okay. Thank you. So the quality events application, the whole idea, and I already mentioned this story, kind of end the Kappa madness. Every issue is not worthy of a corrective action. So you can then do an investigation, determine if it's worthy of a corrective action, and only if so, launch it. The lab investigation application is really designed for organizations that have laboratories, whether it's quality laboratories or analytical laboratories or whatever it might be. It lets you capture lab results out of, either out of spec or out of tolerance issues. It allows you to capture the investigation that takes place, track and trend that event, and then if needed, you can launch a nonconformance from it, or you can launch a corrective action from it if needed. That's the way it's configured out of the box anyway in the system. So this is designed, and we did really create this app out of customer demand because they said that they needed a place to capture this information, and it would be logical for our system to have it available out of the box. And we responded to that, and we appreciated that feedback, and we created it as a standard application that's available on the platform. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is that we have this newly introduced charts capability within our centralized reporting tool. It's a utility that comes with our platform, and you can see over here on the screenshot on the right, this is what it might look like for a user to see these actual live charts. That lets you chart things, it's real time. You can click on this and start to drill down from one thing to another. So it gives you a tremendous amount of access to that information. It's more designed for higher level trend analysis reports. For more detailed analytics reports, we do have a separate tool called ETQ Insights, which is more of a detailed visualizations that have things related to each other, as you would expect to see in a very powerful reporting tool like Power BI or Tableau. So it looks very similar to that, except there's a web interface that we offer these operational dashboards available in. So those are the 3 applications that we wanted to bring to your attention as being new or relatively new that's available on the platform, as well as the introduction to the platform for those of you that may have not seen this in the past. So we thought it would be great information to have. By way of live demo, I'm going to click over here and show you what it looks like for someone to receive an assignment email. So when someone gets assigned something in our system, there's an email that looks very similar to this. In this case, it tells them that it's an assignment to a quality event. It's in the active investigation step of the workflow. This is the record number, this is the due date, and then there's a hyperlink to the record in question. This is configurable so that you could include a description of the problem or anything like that from any field on the form right into this email. So right before I even log into the system, I would receive an email from the system, it pushes it to me, and then I can click on it. And if you had implemented single sign-on, it would know who you are already, so you'd essentially be authenticated in the system, and then it would bring you right to that record in question. So for the sake of time, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but this is the workflow at the top. So these are the steps that this record went through. This got initiated from a different record. So in this case, I can come up here and I can see the event details. We have the ability to quickly and easily navigate to different parts, including pictures. So the picture could be of the event or whatever it might have been that someone took from their device. There's a risk assessment capability. So this ties into our risk register. The result of this could then drive what happens next. There's an investigation plan capability where it delegated different actions or assigned different actions to different people, and that was defined at this step. And then down here is the investigation summary, the root cause analysis section, where we might use one or several root cause tools like 5-Wire, Fishbone, or Pareto that's available with our platform. And then this is the section that automates the need or the ability to capture whether you need to launch a corrective action or not from this. So this is exactly what I was describing, where we could say, oh, this is the second opportunity in this process to say we don't need to do a corrective action. but the system requires that we justify why. So this is the ability to capture objective evidence as to why we don't do it. So we're not just going to say no without a reason. This allows you to capture that. If I say yes, then it gives you this thing called an action button, where I could click this button and launch a corrective action. So this app is not in scope for our discussion, but I just wanted to point it out to show how it fits in. This is a link back to the source quality event record. The system would have inherited details from the quality event record into this record, so I don't have to retype information. And then it has its own capability to inherit the root cause that already came from the quality event record, and then I can propose an action plan, which then gets approved and then implemented. So that's the quality events at a very, very high level. There is one other thing that I want to just give you a visual on to understand about quality events, because I mentioned that that question about whether a CAPA was required is really the second way that you can determine if you need to do anything further. The first way, and I'm just going to search for, this is what a typical application looks like. This is called a view, and these are all very configurable as part of our designer. You can drag and drop fields into columns. This is a list of the quality events that are currently assigned to me. I'm going to click on this one, I think. And because this one's in the initial review step of the workflow, what this allows me to do, this is where that track and trend question came up. So notice that right now, it's going to force me to go to the investigation planning step. But if I say, yes, we're going to track and trend it, which means it's not going to go any further, once again, we have to justify it, and then it's going to allow us to skip to a final approval step. So someone still needs to verify that it's appropriate to not do a corrective action at this point or do anything further for an investigation. So that's the key purpose of the quality events app, and we just wanted to show it to you very quickly. Just because of the sake of time, I'm going to jump into a lab investigation very quickly here. So the lab investigation application allows you to capture issues. It has different parts of the form that'll grow as you go through the process. So there's a lab investigation step. You can identify the details about the batch, any test details and test results as an attachment, any equipment related to it. You can then do a lab investigation, identify additional testing that has to be done in the form of separate activities. You can identify the results. And then finally, during the full investigation, we can define the details. We can attach checklists once again. Notice there's a little bit of dynamic form functionality built in. If I say additional testing is required, it gives me an additional section that I can fill in where I can record that additional testing detail. And if I come down here, there are additional sections to record details. Once again, there's a risk assessment capability built into this as well. And there's also a root cause section built into this. And then over here, this is where we can determine what happens next. Because it's a lab event or lab issue, do we need to launch a product nonconformance from this? And if so, it refreshes and gives me an action button, which would then link to a new nonconformance. Do I need to launch a corrective action, yes or no? And in this case, it's been done for demo purposes. So someone already launched that corrective action. And I'll just quickly show you how this corrective action looks exactly like the other one, but in this case, it came from a lab investigation this time instead of a different record at the source, right? So wanted to point that out kind of quick, but we did a lot of great discussion as well. The last thing I wanted to quickly show is the capability of the charts tool. This is part of our centralized reporting and alerts utility. We have about 8 or so types of charts that you can create, you know, by bar, pie, column, line, Pareto, things like that. You can also put these on a dashboard. So any user can be allowed to go in and create new chart templates that they can use for themselves. But if you want to, as an administrator of our system who has the ability to define different homepage profiles that are available to users by role, you can then put those charts on someone's homepage. So it essentially gives you real-time access to those reports like a dashboard. And if I click on it, this report here is open corrective actions by location, drill down. So what it's doing is it's showing me the number of records by location. And if I click on a specific location like this, it then drills down to the next level for that location. If I click on this, it drills down to the next level for that location and department. And if I click on the last level, and this is really the power of this, our system actually uses that configurable view as a data source for the charts. So that means as you as the non-technical administrator have a tremendous amount of power at your fingertips to be able to configure these views based on your reporting needs. You had the ability to modify the forms to capture the data in the first place with your own categories that you want to include for reporting purposes. And then the charts tool can be used to point to any view that's configured in the system so that it visualizes that data in one of the, I think, 8 or so formats that I just described. So you can also schedule these reports to run on a regular basis and save them in the system. And then there's a separate tool here called Alerts that's part of the centralized reporting tool that monitors for recurrences above a certain threshold within a time frame. So if we go back to the scenario of the quality events where we're capturing global issues and categorizing them, you could have something like an alert monitor that. And even if you have 50 locations and people are tracking all that information from those different places, each location may not realize that there's a developing trend because they would never have visibility into that. But because the system is global and is harmonized across your enterprise, as soon as a trend starts to develop, the alerts tool could capture that developing trend and immediately trigger a report when a threshold is reached. And it can either send an email to a predefined distribution list, almost like a dashboard warning light, to let you know that the condition had occurred, but it can also trigger a new record. So it could trigger a corrective action or a risk assessment or whatever automatically whenever that condition occurs. So that's the centralized reporting and alerts. And we just have one other thing to discuss. And this is just a discussion because it's a little difficult to demonstrate this. It's Google Docs integration. So what this allows you to do, and document control is the most typical use case where this would be used, is if you happen to use Google as an organization, when you create a new document, you can launch that document in Google Docs now, which means that it's in the cloud. It's not just an attachment that you would need to download and work on and then re-upload and attach, but it's actually in the cloud. And when you have a workflow, like in document control, there's often a process for review and approval that's defined that occurs. When you assign something to, in this case, it's assigned to 2 people to review or approve, these 2 people can now be collaborators on that document so that therefore they can both launch it together at the same time from the Reliance interface, and it allows them to collaborate real time just as if you were collaborating in Google Docs, but instead of just pointing to a link that represents the file that's on storage up in Google Docs, you're using our interface to be able to access this document, and it also controls who can collaborate. It's not just a folder that has access like you do in Google Docs, or you share the file with multiple people. The sharing and the security is dynamic based on the ETQ Reliance workflow. So it knows that it's assigned to these 2 people. Those 2 people can be working real time and see each other's changes. And then when they're finished, they can publish it. And then it would then allow you to walk it through the rest of the workflow. So when an end user goes to look up and find one of these documents that was using Google Docs, and they see a link to the document, they're actually launching it from the Google Docs location, which is the original location where it was collaborated on. So in the future, we are working on Microsoft 365 integration as well to work in exactly the same way. So you can use Word or Excel or any other Microsoft tool to collaborate. Currently, you can still manage who can review and approve those documents, but it actually is an attachment that someone would download, work on, and then re-upload. And we have locking mechanisms checking out features so that 2 people can't accidentally edit the same document at the same time. So that's the last new feature that we wanted to bring to your attention. And I think, Angela, you had a couple other things you wanted to mention?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for that, Tom. Appreciate that overview. So before we get into Q&A, I just wanted to kind of slide in a couple additional thoughts for you guys. So no matter where you are, we talked a lot about the journey and the quality journey and kind of where you start and build and expand your program over time. No matter where you are in that journey, we are ready to help. So from calculating the ROI for your business case, and you're just getting rolling, to your project planning, to providing the level of onboarding support that you need. We're standing by, ready to assist. Next slide, Tom. All right. Sorry, so we're more than a QMS solution even. And what I like to say is it's a bit cliche, but but it's true. Your success is our success. And we have the support infrastructure in place to make the ETQ Reliance deployment a success for you. Starting with our professional services, they are there and you can kind of animate. Oh, thank you. Oh, you've already got it built across. Thank you. No, oh, go back.
Oh,
Go back. So we have our professional services team. They are an in-house team. They are certified consultants. They are certified project managers. We've got over 30 years of quality management know-how with all of those best practices gathered, like we talked about earlier, across cross-pollinated across many industries, bringing that know-how to you. And I don't mean to be boastful, but 100% net new implementation success. We will not let our customers fail to the extent that we can assist. We want successful outcomes. We have a team of, or once you come on board, we'll dedicate a customer success manager to you. They're going to be there for you to guide you through your journey and help you get the most out of the ETQ solution and help plan those stages along with you. We have a ton of resources when it comes to learning about the system from a technical standpoint, but also from an end user standpoint. We have all different kinds of modalities for learning and setting up certifications. And we have live sessions, which Tom is a big contributor for us for those Academy Live sessions. And in addition, we have an online community. So once you're on board with us, you'll have access to the entire ETQ customer base to exchange ideas and learn best practices and tips and tricks from one another. So another really great resource. And then we have a technical support team that's there for you all day, every day. We've got you covered. We have options for support plans depending on your needs. We've got online knowledge base, so just all kinds of resources for you to plan your journey, get up and running, start seeing that value, and expanding your quality system globally. Next slide, Tom. And so our customers do see real value or hard value. They've achieved real results across the board. And we've got a set of benchmarks where we have gathered data from a set of customers to get actual hard data. And this is, the inputs to this customer data allowed us to build what we call an ROI calculator. So as a part of kind of scoping out your project with ETQ, we can help you put that business case together and put real numbers behind what the anticipated ROI of your investment will be. So we have those tools available to demonstrate ROI across reducing that risk of noncompliance, streamlining operations, reducing costs, growing, projecting revenue across. This is just a sampling of the dimensions that we have available to put into that model. All right, so I think with that, next slide, we have arrived at Q&A time. If you'll give it one more click, Tom, I think.
One more click.
I think so, yeah.
Oh.
For some reason that button, there you go. So we'll had some questions come in here. Just a quick mention that we have a ton more resources out on etq.com for you to explore, webinars, videos, case studies. If you're ready to talk more with us, be sure to click the request a demo in the upper right hand corner on any page on our website and fill out the form, and we'll be in touch to get a demonstration going for you. All right, so Tom, are you ready for some questions?
Certainly.
Okay, so I think this kind of goes back to your comment earlier, well, in a way, to the people aspect of deploying a QMS. So the question is from maintaining a certification through the process. So how do you approach a changeover from a manual system to ETQ Reliance and kind of maintain that certification status in that process?
Oh, that's a good question. So as you know, when you implement any kind of compliance management system like a QMS, it's not prescriptive. It doesn't tell you that you have to do it a certain way. It just requires that you do certain things, like you have to have an audit program in place and you have to have training in place. It's up to you how you do that. So when you implement a system like ours, not only can our system automate a lot of those processes, but in the case where you might have procedures and other things like work instructions that previously referred to the way you did it manually, you may need to do some revision management on those documents to update the fact that you have new processes for it. So the thing that's really nice about our workflows is that they would automate those processes for you. So you don't have to have someone go to the work instruction and say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this because it tells me to. The system would already know that. And then the other thing that we find that our customers tell us is that when they use our system to do their processes, they're essentially audit ready anytime because of the fact that they're using our system to manage their processes, and as a result of managing those processes, automatically have objective evidence of what was done. So you may be familiar with a manual system where the auditor comes next week, and this week we're running around like chickens with our heads cut off, trying to update our documents and close our corrective actions and all those kinds of things. And normally when I'm in a meeting with other people, you can see your faces, and I often see a lot of people nodding and grinning because that's really what happens, what we've seen. So our system essentially means that you're audit ready theoretically anytime.
Great. So follow-on question, can you develop an audit schedule based on defined risk rating for a process?
You can. Believe it or not, that's all I want to say about that, Angela.
Okay.
So it's a
Powerful
configuration
stuff.
option. So you would, as long as you have a way of tracking the risk for the process, that could be a feedback into the audit frequency that takes place.
Yeah, yeah. And the other thing it makes me think of is that ability to kind of establish a broader audit plan and manage that process
Absolutely, and that's
from a global perspective. Yeah.
yep. And we have an audit planning capability built in.
Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? We've got a few. Um, let's see, on lab investigation, does it come with a teardown tree capability to walk people down a certain path as they review returns?
Not out of the
I'm not.
box, but that's an example that could be configured. And we do have a separate returns management application on the platform as well. So it's you could choose to either incorporate it into the lab investigation process, or just like we discussed with connectivity, maybe it's appropriate at some point from the lab investigation to launch a return and let the workflow and the teardown process or whatever the steps are be configured over there. So we'd want to better understand what you mean by that, but at least at a high level, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah. Yeah, without knowing all the details behind that. Okay. There's a question, in addition to Google Docs, is there Google Sheets integration? And I can, if I'll let you add, but I know that Google Sheets, not yet, but it is on the roadmap. I don't have a timeline
Yep.
to give you, but
Yep.
it is on the roadmap to expand the Google suite.
Yep. I would have said the same exact thing.
Okay, great. And then let's see, on Google Docs, yeah, I think this is related to Google Docs as well, is collaboration. I think on your demonstration, you had two individuals collaborating. So is collaboration limited to only 2 individuals at a time?
No. It's limited to the number of people that are assigned to the same phase. It could be 10 people, it could be 2 people. It's up to you. It's up to you. But that was a good question. But the way the workflow works is you can assign it to any number of people. Each step can be assigned to multiple people, and the collaboration would be limited to that number of people.
Yeah, great. Pardon me. You mentioned integration with ERPs. Do you have pre-built integration with Epicor?
We actually have a partnership with Epicor. So yes, we do, but that's just that's a unique situation because we have many other types of ERP systems that we work with. The goal is to not just provide certain ones, but be available to be integrated with anything.
Yep. Let's see. When attaching images, can you attach multiple files in one step? And then there's a follow-up. Once the files are attached, can the viewer view all images at once, or do you open each individual file?
Good question. You can attach multiple files and they can be thumbnails. So in other words, I think I showed one in the one record that I showed where it was a quality event that had a picture. So it was available in a thumbnail. So you can see all the images. To see them bigger, you would just click on the thumbnails individually and it would expand the size of each one to see, just basically zoom in on it for you.
Cool. Let's see, I think this is back to, I think like maybe the changeover question. So what about management review reporting? Do we have that in place?
That is a good question. So there's two aspects to management review. First of all, do you plan and conduct management reviews, and what are the inputs into the management review? So for that, we have an application called Meetings Management that lets you actually define what the inputs are, but invite people to meetings. We actually integrate with Outlook Calendar. You can invite people into the meetings, and then use the record itself, the meeting record, to track minutes of what you've done. So that's the objective evidence, to track any actions or corrective actions that are launched using workflow from any meeting agenda item. But the inputs into that management review could come from a combination of charts, like I just described. And keep in mind, since you're using the system and you're compliance ready, that means that at any given point in time, you can go in and look at the charts and they're going to be accurate. Or you can use the ETQ Insights tool, which gives you those advanced visualizations that could also be used. So what we've seen our customers do is that when they define the agenda for a management review meeting, they also set up charts and dashboards and insights and our charting tool to pull that information in automatically, so that the preparation for management review is no longer a gymnastics in an Excel exercise or trying to scramble and capture disparate data from different places. Because once again, and this was a great question because it almost lets us pull it all together. You've got a harmonized global system that everyone's using that has the same fields and the same keywords that mean the same thing across the globe, which, by the way, we also support multiple languages, so it could even go as far as that. But then those reports for management review could be predefined and in the system and instantaneously available, so that the preparation for management review is nothing more than assembling them together and then sitting down and discussing them. And then from there, you can do drill downs and get into either individual records if you have questions about what's happening or whatever the case may be. So that was a really good question.
Jeff asked that question and he responded to say, wow, that is great.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
We have several questions around training management. So I'm going to kind of group this kind of into one question. Could we see more on training capabilities? Curious about how training is input and tracked with the system. And another one was, how is QMS document training managed, tracked, documented?
Yeah.
So maybe if you could just give a little overview of some of the training workflows.
Yeah, so I mentioned before that doc control and training are tightly related to each other. And when you create a new document or revise an existing document, you can define that training is required. And there's this thing called applicability, where you define who does it apply to. So if it's a corporate policy or procedure, it might apply to everybody, and the system immediately knows that everybody has to be trained on it. Or it might be applicable to a certain department or a specific department in one of those locations, or a specific job or role in the organization. So it could potentially use predefined relationships that you have people grouped into to associate and define training. Our training app has three ways that training can be delivered. One is classroom training. So there is an instructor-led option where if it's a new employee orientation or something like that, there may be several different topics that get covered and it's tracked in the training course, and you can click and, if you run it on a weekly or monthly basis, you can click a button and it knows anyone else in that location that has not yet taken the training, so it would automatically add them to the list. And it would be a sit down, setting type situation where the trainer has content that they go through, and then they mark them as present, and then they complete the course and it marked it as completed training for each person that attended. The other two options are automated, where someone would receive an assignment email saying you have to train on this document. One is they read it, they click an acknowledgement button, it acknowledges that they're aware of the new version, and when they do that, it automatically updates the training record for that person. The other option is to administer a multiple choice test where you have a minimum score of 75 or 80%, so they have to answer questions, and they could be randomized questions as well from a bank of questions available for that particular document. And if they pass, it then marks it as a completed requirement. So other than that really high level, I might encourage you to contact us and set up either a demo, or we have some pre-recorded demonstrations as well that we can make available to you to answer those additional questions, but certainly appreciate those questions.
Great. Let's see. We're a minute over. There are a couple more questions. Do you, Tom, are you available to keep going, or?
I think we can go for a minute or two if folks are willing to stay with us.
Yeah, it's being recorded, so they can pop back in at their leisure to hear the rest. All right. So this is, I think, back to when we were talking about expanding the Google Suite integration, expansion to Microsoft Suite. Short answer is yes. That is also on the roadmap.
Yep.
So stay tuned. More to come on more Microsoft integration. So let's see. Thoughts on manufacturing Ford Auto and digital twin. How can ETQ contribute to traceability?
Well, that's a good question, and I think that's partially answered by the integration with external systems. So if there's a nonconformance, and this is why we have such a natural match into Hexagon, because Hexagon has the automation capability on the plant floor to do inspections, identify, drift and whatever else takes place. But then most importantly, when an issue gets identified, say there's a measurement that gets taken and it's out of spec, it could automatically trigger a nonconformance report in ETQ Reliance, which then the whole story we told could be applicable. So, Hexagon is really great at manufacturing and capturing the metrology information and the measurements. But one thing that they really liked about ETQ and ETQ Reliance is our ability to manage what happens after that. So we know what to do with the issue. So the traceability would be through the linking and through the record referencing and whatnot. But we certainly can carry on more discussions about that. And I know that Hexagon has some digital twin solutions in place where they actually do digital twin. And I think we might even be seeing them next week, Angela, at our Hexagon Live / customer conference.
That's right. We have customer conference next week, so we'll be learning all kinds of things about Hexagon. Okay, so thank you for that. And I think this is just a quick follow-on, I think, to the training. Is it possible for training to be tracked as well? We'd be able to see who has trained versus who hasn't in order to correct the lack of training. Is it easy to pull these reports if an auditor needed to see a training confirmation? Yes, 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 yes.
Yes, in addition, there's an insights dashboard that gives you a high level tracking of the percent completed by training, by department, by manager overall. So that's the kind of thing that analytics does, is instead of drilling down or being encumbered by the individual details, it lets you boil it down into a digestible format. Especially upper managers love that because they don't want to deal with the day-to-day. They want to deal with the bigger picture. What's the percentage of completed? Why are we not doing this? And then you can go on and take corrective actions against it.
Great. And I think we'll wrap with this question. Will you be sending the recording to us? Yes. So keep an eye out in your inbox for the recording. And again, if you're interested in learning more, we would love to talk to you. Head out to etq.com, click on request a demo, and we'll get that going for you. Thank you so much for joining us today, and happy quality.
Thanks, everyone.